That first glance across the room, and something inside you fractures not with joy alone, but with a sharp, unspoken dread that whispers, "This could strip away every defense you've ever built." Why does the deepest attraction carry this undercurrent of unease, like standing at the edge of a familiar abyss? True love awakens what you've long ignored, and turning away now might mean staying forever fragmented. Breathe into that paradox with me as we begin. Let it settle in your chest, this quiet storm that's been waiting for permission to rise. It's not random. It's the soul's signal that something profound is stirring, pulling you from the numbness of routine into the raw pulse of being truly seen. And in that vulnerability, the real journey unfolds, one breath at a time. If this resonates, pause here, feel the weight of it. What unspoken fear just flickered to life? Perhaps it's the echo of a childhood moment where you learned to dim your light to avoid drawing too much attention, or the residue of a past heartbreak that taught you safety lies in solitude. Whatever it is, honor it gently. It's not a flaw, but a thread in the tapestry of your becoming. As we step forward together, let this initial fracture remind you the discomfort of awakening is often the prelude to profound freedom, a call to reclaim the parts of yourself scattered in the rush of life. You're sitting there heart pounding as their words land softly, yet cut deep, stirring a warmth you've craved, but also a quiet alarm that makes you want to vanish. It's that instant when everything feels too vivid, too real, like they've accidentally brushed against a bruise you forgot was there. This isn't just butterflies, it's the soul recognizing a mirror it wasn't ready for. What if this discomfort is the doorway you've been searching for all along? Let yourself feel it. Just for a moment, close your eyes, recall a time when someone's gaze lingered a second too long, and your breath caught not in excitement alone, but in a subtle panic that whispered, "They might see through me." That flicker. It's the beginning of unraveling the illusions you've woven to protect a heart that's grown weary from hiding. In the bustle of daily life, these moments sneak up perhaps during a casual coffee, where their laugh echoes a joy you've silenced in yourself, or in the silence after sharing a vulnerable story, where the air thickens with unspoken truths. It's here in these subtle collisions that the psyche awakens, signaling that love isn't arriving to soothe, but to stir the depths you've kept dormant. Think of it like a dormant seed cracking open in spring soil. Painful at first, the shell splitting under pressure, but necessary for the bloom that follows. Or imagine walking through a fog-shrouded forest where a sudden beam of light reveals paths you never knew existed. Paths leading inward to forgotten groves of self. These triggers aren't accidents. They're invitations from the unconscious, nudging you toward the wholeness that's been waiting beneath the surface of your carefully curated existence. What recent encounter left you feeling exposed yet alive? Hold that thought as we move inward. If a quiet ache surfaces, jot it down. It's a whisper worth listening to. Deep down, you sense it. One side of you yearns for the safety of solitude, where no one can touch the tender spots, while another aches to dissolve into this connection, risking everything. This tug of war leaves you exhausted, caught between the self you've crafted to survive the reliable achiever, the one who nods and performs, and the raw, unspoken longings that simmer beneath. In the quiet of night, you might lie awake, replaying their smile, feeling both pulled closer and pushed away by an invisible force. It's as if your inner world has become a battlefield, with echoes of past rejections, amplifying every doubt, making intimacy feel like a gamble, where the stakes are your very sense of self. Picture it as an old house you've lived in for years. The facade gleams windows, polished to reflect only what others admire, but the basement holds forgotten rooms filled with echoes of unmet needs, childhood silences and desires deemed too messy for daylight. Performance culture has wired us this way, rewarding the mask, punishing the mess. You've adapted burying the anger from that unacknowledged betrayal, the sadness from years of putting others first until burnout creeps in, leaving you hollow, questioning your own reflection. Think of the late nights scrolling through feeds, envying lives that seem effortlessly whole, while your own feels pieced together from obligations and half-truths. This fragmentation isn't accidental. It's the result of years spent prioritizing approval over authenticity, where fine becomes a shield against the chaos of true feeling. This is where Carl Jung's shadow enters the frame. Those hidden facets aren't villains. They're the exiled parts seeking reunion. Projection plays its role here too. You see in them the freedom you've denied yourself, and it stings because it's yours to claim. Perhaps their quiet strength mirrors your suppressed power, or their playfulness uncovers the joy you stifled to fit in. The anima, or animus, stirs that inner counterpart, drawing you toward wholeness. Yet the ego resists, clinging to control like a lifeline in a storm. Imagine the Carl Jung shadow as a silent companion walking beside you in every interaction, whispering reminders of what you've disowned, maybe the assertiveness you buried after being labeled too much, or the tenderness dismissed as weakness in a world that values productivity over presence. To deepen this, consider a fleeting story of Elena, a 32-year-old teacher from Seattle who juggled lesson plans and family duties with a smile, but inside a storm brewed from years of suppressing her artistic dreams to meet societal molds. When she met a partner whose passion for music echoed her hidden melodies, the split intensified joy mingled with resentment, her Carl Jung shadow projecting unfulfilled creativity onto him, turning admiration into quiet envy that eroded their bond until she paused to trace it back. Emotional suppression builds this split wider. You swallow words to keep peace, but soul hunger grows, manifesting as that vague dissatisfaction, the identity drift where weekends blur into workdays, and you wonder, is this all? It's the cost of living half alive, performing empathy, while your own needs fade into the background. You call it strength, but maybe it's the way you disappear bit by bit, eroding your essence, until relationships feel like performances rather than portals. And in love, this divide sharpens their affection, highlights the void you've ignored, turning what should be joy into a confrontation with the self you've fragmented to survive. Every time you stay silent in a moment that begs for truth, you widen the chasm. But recognizing this, the Carl Jung shadow's subtle hand begins the bridge building. Pause and reflect. What hidden desire rises when you think of them? Journal it gently. In this connection, what part of me feels both alive and afraid? Allow the words to flow without judgment. They might surprise you, revealing layers you've long overlooked, like buried treasures in soil softened by rain. Yet this inner conflict isn't endless. As we delve deeper, you'll uncover how embracing it leads not to loss, but to a profound reclaiming. What emerges when you stop fighting the pull? It's a quiet revolution where the split begins to mend thread by thread, inviting you to explore the Carl Jung shadow not as foe, but as forgotten friend. If a memory surfaced, note it down. It's a step toward integration. Let's uncover more. And then it hits like sunlight piercing through fog. The unease isn't a warning to flee. It's a revelation that this person is holding up a mirror, to your deepest unhealed self. You feel raw because they're illuminating the Carl Jung shadow, those disowned wounds and desires that shape you from the unseen. It's painful, yes, but liberating, reframing what you thought was broken as simply unacknowledged. This moment strips away the veils, exposing how love acts as a catalyst, forcing confrontations with parts of yourself you've exiled to maintain equilibrium in a world that demands conformity. Let's linger with a story that echoes so many quiet struggles. Consider Marcus, a 29-year-old software engineer from Austin, always the logical one, building apps by day and walls by night. He met Lila at a local art walk. Her vibrant energy, the way she spoke of dreams without apology, drew him like a moth to flame. Early on, it was effortless shared hikes, laughter that eased his constant tension. But as closeness grew, her spontaneity began to grate, stirring a mix of envy and fear. He'd snap at small things, then withdraw, heart racing with confusion. Why this irritation? It wasn't her. It was the reflection of his own stifled creativity, buried after a youth spent prioritizing practical paths over passion, leaving him burned out and disconnected from his core. Marcus's days blurred into code and deadlines, but nights brought whispers of what could have been sketches, abandoned stories untold, now projected onto Lila as resentment. He found himself critiquing her impulsiveness, when truly it highlighted his own rigid structure, a defense against the chaos of unexpressed emotions that had built up like unopened letters in a drawer. In those tense moments, Marcus projected his Carl Jung shadow onto Lila, the freedom he craved, but feared tied to old wounds of parental expectations that equated stability with suppression. Jung captures it perfectly. Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. That annoyance was a breadcrumb trail back to his unintegrated self, the transcendent function weaving conscious doubts with unconscious truths. For Marcus, it manifested in subtle ways, avoiding creative hobbies, dismissing Lila's invitations to paint or wander, all while envying her ease. The reveal came during a heated argument where he admitted, "Your freedom scares me because I've never allowed it in myself." That confession cracked open the door, turning projection into self-awareness, like a dam breaking to release pent-up rivers of insight. This reveal shakes foundations, true love as a catalyst, not a comfort zone. The confusion arises from projections. Your partner's independence might expose your fear of abandonment rooted in past losses. Their intensity could mirror your own repressed fire, the desires society labeled selfish. Symbolic imagery helps here. Imagine a locked chest in your chest, rattling with forgotten treasures, fears of inadequacy, yearnings for authenticity. Love turns the key, releasing not just pain, but potential. Or picture the Carl Jung shadow as a veiled figure in a dream, stepping forward when love arrives, demanding recognition amid the discomfort, its form shifting from monster to mentor as you gaze unflinchingly. But here's the mid-video disruption. What if the perfect loves you've known before were illusions, mere echoes of personas colliding without depth? What if real connection demands this chaos and avoiding it keeps you forever on the surface? That question lingers, doesn't it, challenging everything, forcing you to wonder if the unease is not a curse, but the price of authenticity in a world of superficial bonds? And what if, in fleeing this mirror, you're not protecting yourself, but perpetuating the very isolation that aches most? The healing insight unfolds gently. Reframe the wound as wisdom. For Marcus, it meant quiet evenings, journaling his irritations, tracing them back to a childhood where creativity was dismissed. Therapy helped, but so did honest talks with Lila, turning projection into partnership. The shift, compassion replaces criticism. The shadow integrates fostering individuation, a journey where fragments become whole. He began small doodling during breaks, sharing unfinished ideas with her watching, as envy dissolved into inspiration, and their bond strengthened through shared vulnerability. Take a breath, journal this now. What quality in my loved one stirs discomfort, and what hidden part of me does it reflect? Let it unravel you softly, revealing patterns you've carried like invisible weights. As this awareness settles, the path forward clarifies, leading us to that pivotal choice where pain transforms into possibility. What if embracing the Carl Jung shadow isn't about battle, but about welcoming home the parts that make you whole? If an insight emerged, share it silently with yourself. It's yours to nurture. Now comes the pivot where you stand at the crossroads, bolt from the intensity, preserving the familiar ache, or lean in, allowing the discomfort to guide you toward reintegration. It's here that self-acceptance whispers, turning what felt like threat into threshold. This choice isn't grand. It's in the small surrenders, the decision to stay when every instinct screams retreat, to voice the fear instead of letting it fester in silence. Every time you choose presence over withdrawal, you rewrite the script, transforming old patterns into pathways of growth. Draw near to another tale, one of quiet courage. Meet Nadia, a 35-year-old marketing consultant from Denver, polished and poised her life, a checklist of achievements, masking inner voids. She crossed paths with Theo at a conference. His thoughtful presence, the way he listened without rushing to fix, ignited a spark she hadn't felt in years. Initial dates bloomed with ease, but soon his questions probed deeper, unearthing her guarded heart. Nadia felt exposed, the weight too much. Memories of a controlling ex surfaced, triggering an urge to sabotage, to retreat into solitude where no one could hurt her again. Her days were filled with client meetings and strategic plans, but beneath lay a weariness from years of adapting to others' expectations, her own desires sidelined like unread emails. She noticed how her laughter in his company felt genuine, yet terrifying, as if allowing joy meant risking its loss once more. She almost did canceled plans, blamed work. But in a moment of raw honesty over coffee, one rainy afternoon, she confessed, "This scares me because it feels real." Theo didn't recoil. He shared his own fears, creating space for vulnerability. That unexpected turn became her micro-climax. Instead of fracture, connection deepened. Nadia's Carl Jung shadow, the fear of engulfment she disowned after years of people-pleasing, surfaced not as enemy, but teacher. It revealed how past relationships had reinforced her walls, turning intimacy into a perceived trap, while her soul hungered for genuine merging. The shadows danced in her dreams, manifesting as recurring images of locked doors that, when approached, swung open to reveal light-filled rooms. The tipping point, choosing curiosity over escape. Every time you stay, you teach yourself and them that wholeness includes the unseen parts. The solution lies in small acts. Name the fear aloud. This stirs my old doubts, and watch it lose power. Reframe the tension as invitation, discomfort, signaling growth, not danger. Realism tempers hope. It's messy with setbacks like arguments that revisit wounds, but each return builds resilience. Nadia experienced this in waves, days of harmony, interrupted by doubts, yet each conversation peeled back layers, fostering trust. She integrated by exploring her Carl Jung shadow, through walks alone, questioning the origins of her fears, and gradually inviting Theo into those spaces without losing herself. For Nadia, integration meant therapy walks in nature, reclaiming the independence she'd surrendered in past loves. Hope flickered as Theo joined her, their shadows intertwining without overwhelm. She began setting boundaries, not as barriers, but as bridges allowing love to flow, without drowning her sense of self. Reflect. In my discomfort, what choice am I avoiding? Pause. Let it resonate. Perhaps it's the choice to be seen fully, flaws and all, in a world that often rewards only the polished veneer. Or maybe it's forgiving the younger you who built those walls for protection, now ready to dismantle them, brick by gentle brick. This turning opens the way back, where safety awaits in the embrace of your true self. As the fragments align, a new strength emerges, one born from the courage to face what once terrified. Breathe into that choice what small step calls to you now. If it feels daunting, start with a single word shared in trust. Softly we circle home to the quiet core that's always been yours, untouched by the storms. By staying with the unease, you weave shadows into light, discovering love as a shared sanctuary where healing blooms without force. This return isn't about arrival. It's a gentle remembering where the pieces you've scattered begin to gather, forming a mosaic more beautiful for its cracks. Feel the shift. Initial turmoil eases into a grounded peace where projections dissolve and the anima or animus harmonizes within. Relationships transform not through erasure of flaws, but illumination of them together. You've journeyed through the Carl Jung shadow, emerging with individuation's gift, a self no longer split but unified. Imagine it as returning to a childhood home after years away. The rooms feel familiar yet expanded, holding space for the stories you've collected along the way. In love, this means moments of quiet understanding, a hand squeeze during vulnerability, or shared silence that speaks volumes, where the once hidden parts are welcomed like long-lost kin. To illustrate, think of Javier, a 41-year-old architect from Chicago, who after years of drafting blueprints for others' visions found in his partner Sophia a reflection of his neglected imagination. Their early conflicts over his workaholism unveiled his Carl Jung shadow, the creative abandon he'd sacrificed for security, leading to evenings where they co-designed dream spaces, blending their worlds into harmony. Healing here is remembrance, daily rituals like morning reflections, voicing needs without apology, or simply holding hands in silence, acknowledging the darkness shared. Jung's words anchor us. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. No fixing required, just presence turning isolation into intimate union. Extend this to your life, perhaps evenings, debriefing the day's shadows or rituals, like writing letters to your younger self, forgiving the suppressions that kept you safe but small. Or envision a sacred space in your home, a corner with candles and journals where you invite the Carl Jung shadow to sit with you, transforming whispers of doubt into dialogues of depth. Extend this moment. Let the emotional high linger, washing over you like a slow dawn. What wholeness emerges when you no longer flee your depths? It's here, waiting in the soft rhythm of breath, in the warmth of connection that honors all of you. As the Carl Jung shadow integrates, love becomes not a battleground, but a garden where both light and dark nourish growth, yielding fruits of authenticity that sustain through seasons of change. Invite this peace in what ritual could anchor your return today. Perhaps a walk under stars, whispering affirmations to the night. In that love that once felt too piercing, too true, lies the transformation you seek, discomfort as the alchemist's fire, forging depth from doubt. True love arrives not for ease, but to awaken your fullest self, reminding you that wholeness was never lost, only waiting to be reclaimed amid the shadows. If echoes stir within, whisper them. What shadow has love revealed in you? Share below if it calls we heal in community. For more on this Carl Jung shadow path, like, comment your insights, or subscribe to journey deeper together. And remember, in exploring the Carl Jung shadow, we find not just ourselves, but the courage to love without armor. Tie back to that first fracture. The dread wasn't destruction, it was dawn. The moment you embrace the uncomfortable is the moment love remakes you whole. Let this be your invitation to step forward, heart open, into the light you've always carried within. As you carry this forward, consider how each encounter once feared now becomes a stepping stone to a life richly lived in truth.